I've had the PS5 Pro for 1 month now, and I wanted to share my thoughts on the console. I won't be going into too much detail about the specs of the console in this video, just because there's plenty of these types of videos out on YouTube. Instead, I wanted to share my own personal experience with the PS5 Pro as someone who's purchased this with their own money. Just a quick disclaimer, there will be timestamps in the description down below, so if you do want to skip to a particular parts of the video, you are more than welcome to do so. The design. I've always been a bedroom gamer. Every guy just needs his own man cave, right? In all seriousness, every time I walk past the PS5 Pro, it just brings a smile to my face. It's just like a piece of gaming heaven. I know some people might think this is weird, but I really love the design of the PS5 Pro. I know design is subjective, but honestly, I think it looks fantastic. Sure, there's been a lot of talk around the Adidas style vents in the middle, but I actually find them pretty cool. In my opinion, I actually think it makes the PS5 Pro stand out, and it adds to the overall minimalist design. In terms of dimensions, the PS5 Pro is the same width as the base PS5, and it is the same height as the PS5 Slim. So you could think of this as being bang on in the middle of both the base PS5 and the PS5 Slim. If you've heard of that story, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, this is kind of like this. It's not too small, it's not too big, it's just right, bang on in the middle. The console has a matte white finish, which makes it look sleek and modern, but the matte white paint actually has functionality as well. This is because with it being matte white, it's not shiny like the base PS5, so this attracts less fingerprints, and for me this is a big win, because let's face it, the last thing you want to be doing is constantly cleaning your console. You'd rather be sitting back, relaxing and just playing some games. The PS5 Pro contains a lot of design elements which have been carried over from the base PS5, such as these small PlayStation icons which have been embedded into the design. If you look really closely, you might be able to see the PlayStation icons in the matte white finish here. At the front we have two USB-C ports instead of one like the base PS5 had. For me, this is a huge improvement, especially now that we're in 2025. USB-C should just be the norm and something which is included as standard with every single piece of tech, not just games consoles. By having two USB-C ports, you can charge multiple accessories at the same time. For example, maybe you have two controllers, you can charge these together, or you can charge a controller and a headset as well. Another similarity and design element that's been carried over from the base PS5 is the PlayStation icons on the back of the PS5 Pro. So not only do these look cool, but they have some functionality as well. These act as stabilizers when putting the PS5 Pro in the horizontal orientation. You can do this using the two plastic feet which are included as standard in the box. Personally, I don't really use the PS5 Pro in the horizontal orientation, but it's still there if you want to use it. Moving on to the differences now. The first of these is at the front of the console. We now just have the power button. This is because the eject button has been removed and put onto the separate disk drive. I know, this change has caused a lot of controversy and stir with gamers. Many people are now upset with Sony because you're having to pay separately for a disk drive. This might be a bit controversial, but for me, this isn't an issue at all. I'm someone who mostly buys my games online through the PlayStation Store, so this isn't an issue for me. One issue many people experienced with the base PS5 was having the power and eject buttons together. This was causing a lot of confusion because people were accidentally turning off their PS5 when in fact they were just trying to eject their gaming disc. By having just the power button here and moving the eject button onto the disk drive, this does allow some separation and this does solve this issue. The performance. Okay, so some of you might be wondering, I really don't care how the console looks. Does it deliver pro performance? Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag. One of Sony's big selling points with the PS5 Pro was PSSR, which stands for PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution. PSSR uses AI to analyze the image and figure out the best way to enhance and improve the graphics without sacrificing on frame rates or causing a drop in performance. Sony showed off this feature with their showcase of the PS5 Pro, where they had games such as Ratchet and Clank, where the background was sharper, contained more clarity, and was more crisp with the features of PSSR. This was done whilst the game was still running at 4K 60. In theory, this sounds great because PSSR is working in the background, you don't require any software updates, and it's improving the image quality in the background without you having to do anything. Sounds good, right? Maybe not. Theory is different to real-world use. In my personal experience with the PS5 Pro, I found PSSR hasn't always been perfect. Some games like Ratchet and Clank and Spider-Man look amazing with PSSR enabled, but I'm a big fan of older games such as Mafia, the Definitive Edition, which is a remake of the original game. I'll be honest, I didn't notice any difference at all in image quality when playing this. Now, there are videos on YouTube going into a detailed comparison of games such as Mafia from the base PS5 compared to the PS5 Pro, and they go into it in a lot more detail than me. I will leave a link down below and you can watch those. In my opinion, PSSR is a nice feature to have, but it's still in its early stages. You can definitely see PSSR has the potential and totally change the gaming experience in the future because it's using AI to analyze the image and improve the graphics, which I think is really cool, similarly to what AMD are doing with PC gamers. For me, Sony need to do more work and try and get PSSR to work on all games, not just first-party games like Spider-Man and Ratchet and Clank. Another cool feature Sony showcased was optimized console performance. If you have a base PS5 or a PS5 Slim, you'll know how hard it is having to pick between performance and fidelity mode. The PS5 Pro gets rid of that choice, so you can play games at the highest possible frame rate without sacrificing on image quality. I've played games like Spider-Man and honestly it just looks incredible, especially with the enhanced ray tracing. The best part is I can swing through Manhattan at 4K 60 and the image quality just looks incredible and the game just runs so smoothly. It really is just an immersive experience, especially if you have a 4K HDR TV or monitor. Another feature which Sony showcased was optimized console performance. Unlike PSSR, which works in the background, this does rely upon the developers. This is why many of the confirmation leaks about the PS5 Pro actually came from developers. This is because Sony sent their dev kits to these first-party studios. This allowed them to spend time with the hardware and using it to improve and upscale their existing games in order to make use of the console's extra performance capabilities. That's why games such as Spider-Man, Ratchet and Clank, and The Last of Us make use of this feature. At launch, there were around 50 games which made use of this feature. As of this video, this list is increasing day by day. I will leave a link down below for an article which lists every single game as of today, which makes use of this feature, and hopefully more developers will come on board. As I touched upon earlier, one important thing to note is you will need a compatible TV or monitor to make use of the PS5 Pro. Regardless of which TV or monitor you go for, try and at least make sure it's 4K 60, otherwise it's pointless buying the PS5 Pro because you won't really be taking advantage of its features. If you can find ones which are 4K 120, that's even better. The verdict. So, should you upgrade? Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is price. I'm based in the UK, so here the PS5 Pro costs £699. In the US, the PS5 Pro is $699. If we convert £699 into dollars as of today's exchange rate, we roughly get around $870. This just goes to show how much more expensive the PS5 Pro is here in the UK. It seems that the US has the PS5 Pro at a much cheaper price. I'm not saying $699 is cheap either, but if you compare this to the UK, it still is cheaper. Especially considering post-COVID, the current cost of living crisis and where the economy is across the world, I really do think Sony should have at least tried to make the pricing universal across the board, because here in the UK, we are paying a lot more for the PS5 Pro compared to the US. And to make matters worse, the PS5 Pro doesn't come with a vertical stand, nor does it come with a disk drive. Even the base PS5 had the vertical stand, yet the PS5 Pro doesn't even come with a stand, nor does it come with a disk drive, which for me is really disappointing. This is called a Pro console, yet Sony haven't included a Pro controller. We just get the standard DualSense controller. I understand that the DualSense Edge controller is more expensive. Sony could have given us a special PS5 Pro themed controller, even if it was just a normal DualSense controller, but with a special theme, which exclusively came with the PS5 Pro. This might be controversial, but for me, the disk drive isn't an issue. This is because I buy most of my games from the PlayStation Store, and I don't really have any physical games. But I do understand people's frustrations, because many people do buy physical games, whether that is for the nostalgia, or sometimes people like to buy a used game because it's cheaper. Especially if you want to buy the disk drive as well as the vertical stand, this can really add up and get expensive and go into the £1,000 range. I really do think Sony have missed a trick, and at the very least should have included a vertical stand like the base PS5 did. It's not all doom and gloom, so on the bright side, you do get a 2TB SSD, and this is by far the biggest ever hard drive which we've had in a PlayStation. In real world use, the overall capacity is 1.89 terabytes. I currently have around 10 games installed on the PS5 Pro, including Call of Duty Black Ops 6, which is a really big game. It's around 300 gigabytes. Despite this, I still have loads of space left on the PS5 Pro. If you're like me and you play multiple games at the same time, this is fantastic because you don't have to delete games or buy an external hard drive and move them onto there. You can just keep all of your games onto the hard drive and just play them whenever you like. After a month of testing, I haven't encountered any overheating issues or fan noise. The console runs smoothly and quietly. If you prefer gaming in your living room and maybe you're worried about the fan noise, or maybe you have the console tucked away into a cupboard, I can assure you, you won't have any issues with the fan noise or overheating. Just make sure, even if you do have the PS5 Pro locked away in a cupboard, just give it a bit of space to allow the airflow. Despite me having the PS5 Pro for just 1 month, honestly, my experience has been amazing. You can play games at the highest possible frame rates without sacrificing on image quality. If you have the base PS5 or the PS5 Slim, personally, I wouldn't recommend buying the PS5 Pro. I would just stick to what you have, unless you have the extra cash or you're like me and you're just a big gaming enthusiast. If you're new to PlayStation and you've never had one, or maybe you have the PS4 or the PS4 Pro, don't even think about it. Just buy the PS5 Pro. You will not regret the decision. For me, the PS5 Pro is the best console on the market right now. You get a massive 2TB SSD, the games run smoothly and quietly, and you can play games at the highest possible frame rate without sacrificing on image quality. And Sony has a huge library of games to play for all ages and skill levels, especially now with some Microsoft games coming over to PlayStation as well, such as Halo. PlayStation really is the best console to be on right now. I will follow up with a 3-month, 6-month and a more long-term review, as my opinion might change with more testing and time with the PS5 Pro. Please comment down below and let me know if you are buying the PS5 Pro. I hope this video was useful for you. Thanks for watching and take care. Peace.